Hi class! I would like to welcome everyone to Environment 101. Today, Maeve and I are going to go through a quick survey of relevant information about the environment and some thoughts to keep in mind as we aim to be environmentally conscious human beings. Today, we're going to go over institutions in context of the environment and our relationship with those institutions.
Hi everyone, my name is Maeve, and today we're going to go over defining institutions in the context of the environment. There are multiple definitions of institutions that affect our environment, depending on your perspective. The most general definition of institutions is that institutions are the conventions, norms, and formally sanctioned rules of society. They provide expectation, stability, and meaning essential to human existence and coordination. Institutions regularize our life, support values and product, and protect our interests. This quote was taken from a book called The Institutions of the Environment by Professor Arlid Vatten, professor at the Norwegian University of Life Sciences. As we go over examples of institutions that exist in our society that affect the environment, we'll also be learning about what they do or what they don't do to help solve some of our world's most pressing issues. As you all probably know, AFO is out of San Francisco, California. And in San Francisco and a few other states, we have a company called Recology. So let's talk about what Recology does. Recology implements recycling programs and builds infrastructure at its facilities to recover recyclables and reduce landfill-bound materials, i.e. our waste. By seeking out and utilizing new technology systems to sort and extract materials, they're able to return organic materials to farms as compost provided with recycled raw materials such as plastic or aluminum to manufacturers, which is essentially the entire recycling process, returning what our waste is to something that could be new, made again. Currently, Recology services about 127 communities in California, Washington, Oregon, and Nevada. When we consider how large the United States is, that's not very many communities. On average, Recology recovers over 600 million pounds of recyclables each year, just in those 4 states, okay? Just in those 4 states. And right now, they're continuously researching ways to recycle more items to be made into new products. Particularly, their latest engineering feat has been in the planning, designing, and implementing of systems constructed to collect and recycle film plastics, which are used to make items like grocery bags, which is why we now pay a 25 cent extra for a bag. So hopefully Recology is successful in this. Organizations like Recology exist to help mitigate human impact on the environment by utilizing recycling solutions to dispose of our waste. However, as we can see by the states that utilize resources like Recology, access to more sustainable recycling is not available to everybody in the United States. As we move forward into the next examples, we'll learn about another component that affects this access to sustainable recycling. Arguably one of the biggest actors for or against our environment is actually the government itself and the environmental policies that it enacts. The government plays two roles in the protection of our environment. While they are responsible for protecting the interests of local ecology like birds and other wildlife, governmental agencies allocated to protect the environment also implement shady and darker policies that only further destroy our environment, which only serves to continue distrust in the capabilities of its very own function. This seemingly endless cycle only increases the cost we all pay for such bad programs, not only monetarily, but in diminished personal freedom and erosion of respect for our own legal system, not to mention the depletion of our environment. Let's bring it back to San Francisco for a moment. The last time the city and county of San Francisco enacted policies to protect the environment was in 2017, which in the grand scheme of things is not that long ago, but considering our condition, we need a much more aggressive push. This plan included the prohibition of polystyrene foam, initiatives for solar or green requirements for all new construction, and new green building requirements for more sustainable building. As we move into 2021, it is really important that we, as citizens of the United States of America, let our politicians know that we want more aggressive protection for our environment. As of right now, I believe Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is in support of the Green New Deal, and hopefully President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris pick it up along with protecting us from COVID. The final example we're going to go over today is big business. Our consumer culture today creates this necessity for businesses to constantly produce, regardless of its effect on the environment. The pollution in our world today is one of the biggest environmental problems we face. The business impact due to pollution stretches far and wide, with just one example pinpointing the effects on the health of people, which then impacts medical costs and loss of productivity. For example, the increased air and water pollution's effect caused by big business costs about $2.2 trillion in damage every single year. And this is cited by an unpublished UN report by The Guardian. As we move forward in these videos with All for One, it's important for us to be able to draw connections and see the intersectionality of a lot of these items. The connection between big business and the government sectors heavily impact the way each other operates. They're dependent on each other to exist. While government institutions make money off of the success of wasteful large businesses, the government also doesn't incentivize these companies and loses out in the long term when we lose the land that we've been living on for the past millennia, which continues to perpetuate this endless cycle that we can't seem to get ourselves out of. So here's a solution that I'll offer you. What is clear is that several sectors must come together to reduce their collective effect on the environment by compromising and meeting halfway, and also prioritizing the environment as an invaluable asset that cannot be compromised. And this is something that you can do. You can demand more, you can be more conscientious. And I know that you probably feel just like really small. I feel that way too. But at the end of the day, as long as you're doing your part as an individual, other things will come and follow. Thank you.
Thanks, Maeve. Now that we have some understanding and examples of impactful institutions, next we're going to talk about our relationship with those institutions. Now, there are differences throughout our world, and it's important that we recognize them, especially when they make various effects for different groups of people. Factors that relate to people's different experiences with the same institutions include socioeconomic status and identities in race and ethnicity. These three ways of grouping people affect our relationship with the institutions and the environment. It's important that we note and remember Kimberly Crenshaw's theory in intersectionality when we talk about these social identities. With this in mind, we can be mindful about how these identities combine and are exploited. For example, race is the biggest factor in determining the location of toxic waste and/or local waste collection sites in the United States. Cities across the country place these hazardous sites within or near BIPOC, low-income, and poor communities. According to Jim Erickson from the University of Michigan, minorities and low-income communities are seen as the path of least resistance because they have fewer resources and political clout to oppose the siting of unwanted facilities. This practice exposes people to developing serious health issues that stem from being close to the waste. Applying what we know about intersectionality, their socioeconomic status can conflict when dealing with these health issues, as well as health facilities being at large distances to the point where it prevents them from accessing the necessary resources. This brings us to another important point. These groups of people's experiences are exacerbated by accessibility. Not everyone has the same choices in life. In the case of helping our environment, not everyone has the choice to live completely sustainable. In many ways, we have to go out of our way to get products that are sustainable to our environment. But there are many people who do not have the mobility to access and purchase those products. So they use whatever is available to them. Does that make them bad people for using some products that might be harmful to the environment? Absolutely not. We cannot fault people for doing what they can from what is provided to them. Instead, we must shift our focus more onto the systems and companies rather than the individual. We should look at the institutions who have power that create a space where people often have no choice but to continue a way of life that people may view as unhelpful to our environment. One way decisions made by institutions causes various effects for people are through governmental policies. An issue very relevant to San Francisco is the old naval bases in Hunters Point Shipyard and on Treasure Island. In those areas, the Navy tested bombs and dealt with toxic materials. Once they were done with the land, they left behind hazardous waste and radiation. Governmental policies were created to allow San Francisco to build housing in both areas. The majority of the people living in Hunters Point and on Treasure Island are people who are BIPOC. Despite numerous findings of radiation and blatant lies that it had no effect on the residents, people within 1 mile radius of the shipyard have developed chronic coughs and cancer due to radiation exposure. The San Francisco Bayview National Black Newspaper, Green Action, and the Hunters Point Community Biomonitoring Program are some groups actively covering and demanding accountability for this act of environmental racism. New policies allowing housing to be developed will continue to hurt people living in those areas through gentrification and will cause an increase in illnesses as other people move in, exposing them to the toxic waste. We have only dipped our toe in some important ideas about this relationship with institutions and the environment. What we have gone over can be disheartening for people, and it's important to us that you don't leave class without some hope for tomorrow. Some steps to take towards solutions concerning our institution's effects on the environment is: 1. You are already doing the first one by becoming aware that this relationship exists. We want to continue to educate ourselves on these issues and on this topic. 2. Rethink the way we interact with institutions. Reach out and get connected to people doing work in your community. If you have the option to be sustainable, do it. And if you have the option to not contribute to a company that hurts our environment, make those pockets hurt. 3. We can only grow from this point. Continue to be open to ideas and learn from people around you. Have a great day.